Hello. Today's topic is how I got my first job in New York City. Okay, so I moved to New York in the summer of 2018, and I came to New York City with no job. I had no job. I had just ended my contract position, and then I flew to New York and I had no job. I had like $1,000 in my checking account, maybe $1,500 max. And I honestly wasn't worried. I wasn't worried too much. My housing was covered. My friend was letting me stay with her. And then I just moved here. The goal was to just get to New York City. That was step number one, get to New York City. When step one was complete, I settled in, I took in the city, I walked around, I visited places, I enjoyed myself. I acted like, I was on some lavish trip, and I just enjoyed it. Those were like the vibes I was giving off, right? And I ended up, I'll talk about this in a video dedicated to budgeting, but I ended up spending like $500 my first week here, and that was not smart at all. I was not mindful of my spending. I was just trying to keep up with friends and be able to afford like moments like eating, dining, or events, experiences. And when I looked at my account, I'm like, where did $500 go? How did I spend like $100 a day? Didn't make sense. But then after about a week and a few days, I was like, okay, it's time to like start searching, because we're close to the end of the month and I want to start the new month fresh. I want to start the new month with a job. So I went on job listing sites like Indeed, Monster, and honestly, there was no game plan. And I just started applying. My goal was whichever company responds back to me is the company that I'm going to work at. Now, before I got my first job in New York City, I actually was able to land some type of program at an advertising agency where I was able to work with the company for one whole week with like college students and just learn what this advertising company does on a daily basis in all the different departments. It was basically my introduction to corporate America from the perspective or lens of an advertising agency, a small advertising agency with big clients. And I don't know, I didn't really understand like the opportunity at the time, or maybe I did, I just didn't appreciate it. But I did well. Like I met other like people that were part of the week-long program. We got fed every day, and we got to learn. I felt like I was on some type of MTV show, honestly. And I met people from different departments, kept in touch with one guy who's an amazing photographer. We still talk, and every now and then. And basically my point is that I could have had a job. I could have had a full-time job after this 1 week immersive experience at this advertising agency. I don't want to call it an internship because it wasn't really an internship. It felt like an externship, honestly, but it was just a program, and a really cool program or way for the company to give back to college students, early young professionals who were trying to adjust and change industries. And our final presentation, we had to basically represent a brand, a fake brand, and give them ideas of what our groups, I think there were 2 groups, there were like 10 of us, and we had to present to members of the different departments at this agency. And I have a very high energy kind of presentation aura, so when I'm up there, I'm smiling big, I'm talking, and it makes you feel excited. You don't know what you're excited for, but you feel excited. And at the end, the person in charge of hiring, I would say HR, the chief of HR, she was like, look, if you're interested, let me know. But I didn't I didn't take her up on her offer, but I knew that she was basically hinting that if I were interested and wanted to work for the company, she would hook me up. Now, there are moments in life where you make decisions, and the no's you say, like the no's you make, the decisions that you make that are a no, your answer is a no, those are decisions. Those are big decisions, just as much as the answers you give that are yeses are big decisions. And I remember just thinking, oh, we'll be in touch. Like, I'll stay in touch, I'll check in. I didn't take her up on her offer, and I could have had my first full-time corporate job right when I moved to New York City, about 2 to 3 weeks in moving. But I said no. I didn't. I had the experience, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna just search for something. Even though I had an opportunity right there. It was right there, but I was like focused on what else can I do. And so I went on job sites like Monster, Indeed, Craigslist, and I just applied. I sent my resume everywhere. The first company to get back to me was Saks Fifth Avenue, a luxury retail store in Manhattan. I worked for Saks Fifth Avenue for about a year. At the time, I thought I was just gonna do it, and it was gonna be like 6 months, like we'll go with the flow, we'll see what happens. It ended up being a year. Saks Fifth Avenue was the first place to get back to me and say yes. I did the interview. I actually did the interview. I remember applying, and then maybe a week later they responded and said that they wanted to set up an interview. I did the interview. I dressed up all black, blazer, nice shoes, nice flats that covered my toes, looked good. I was professional. I had pearls, and I went to their offices. The manager that was supposed to interview me was tied up with the previous meeting, the previous candidate. So he or she was not able to meet with me. Like I basically was waiting for the manager to interview me, and he or she was late. So the office manager decided to interview me. And I still remember that day. I obviously looked brand new. I obviously looked like, I had that positive energy, but I did not look like I might have belonged. I might not have looked like I belonged in a place like Saks Fifth Avenue. And I think a big part of it is just confidence. Like when you're in a new situation, you need to act like you freaking can rock this place left or right, just by one word. Like you really have to have that je ne sais quoi, gravitas. Like you gotta be like, yo, who I am. Like, yes, everyone matters, but I also can impact the way we things operate and move forward. So anyways, a good example is when I tell my story about working here at this particular place, I tell people when I first was hired, I acted like I worked at Chuck E. Cheese, and I was basically taken to the side, and I was told by my manager that I needed to kind of relax. Basically, in a nice way, I need to relax, and I need to let clients approach me. I need to stop going to clients and kind of just I was doing a lot, but I took it personally. I thought I was being told to dim my light, but I was just being, I guess, prepped or prepared for the elevation of my, eventual success at this location. Because when I do look at the end of my journey, I definitely changed a lot, definitely from the outside. The person I am at the core stayed the same, but there was physical changes, like the way I dressed, the way I communicated, the way I walked. Things became slower, more direct, more intentional, more focused. That's what I learned from Saks Fifth Avenue. And I learned that, the relationship we have with your client is very, very important, because you don't have a business without the money, without the support. but the relationships that you have with your teammates are also very, very important. And if you're lucky, the relationship that you have with your supervisors are on point. But today's video is all about how I got my first job. And I got it, two things, timing and luck. The timing of applying, and then the luck of not being interviewed by my manager, my future manager, but being interviewed by the office manager, who basically gave me my shot and was like, you know what, I think we have room for you here. You know, it's just, when I think about the way that people have the potential to change our lives, and there are people out there that can give us a yes and make room for us to kind of join an organization or a company, it's life-changing. Like, you really can change people's lives. And I think about that start because I always think about how things could have been had I taken the offer of the chief HR person at the advertising company and said, hey, like, I love this experience. I want to do whatever it takes. Give me any role. I'll start at the bottom. Like, I just want to be a part of this company. I would have been given a role, and I would not have had to apply, and I would not have ended up at Saks. But I chose my fate by saying no, and then I accepted what was to come at Saks. So that in itself is a whole journey, and I do want to talk more about it, kind of like how I maneuvered or navigated my way in this new world where, you know, I was constantly being judged, or, you know, my product knowledge was being questioned and my expertise was being asked for by people. You know, I had to kind of navigate relationships with my colleagues, my coworkers. You know, I had to learn how to not step on toes. I had to learn what was more important. Was the sale more important, or was building the trust and, I guess, the respect, you know, really important? I also had to learn, you know, that you can want, as an employee, you can want the best for the company, but if the company doesn't want the best for the employee or themselves, like the people, you can focus that energy on something else and bring something beautiful into the world. And I never shopped at Saks Fifth Avenue before I worked there. And I just think it's an interesting situation because I learned a lot about like people's behaviors and the way people act when it comes to money. And, you know, I learned why people buy things, whether it was either to make themselves happy or to make other people happy. But it was just a great overall experience for my first year in New York. And out of all the jobs that you can work when you move to a new place, a new city, a big city, an expensive city, a city that really pushes you to hustle in order to make it, I was very blessed to have my first job in New York, be with a luxury retailer like Saks Fifth Avenue. It was not a perfect journey, or it wasn't a perfect experience. It wasn't the best ride at times. Like, there were definitely a lot of bumps along the way, but I believe the person that I am now, like, it was a great experience for me to go through, because now I'm a lot more sure of myself. I put myself in situations where it's like I'm getting judged, and it just doesn't affect me. It really doesn't affect me, because if you knew how powerful you were without the clothes, without the brand name designer clothes, you wouldn't let them affect you so much while you had them on, you know? And I realized I did become a little more materialistic. Honestly, I did. I was like, okay, this looks nice, this looks great. And I realized I had to kind of like compartmentalize the important stuff. Like, is it really the materials, or is it the person who's wearing them or using them? So there's just a lot of things. I definitely want to dive deeper and talk about my experiences, because it's important to share our stories, and what you see is not always what you get. And I worked with amazing, incredible people, and I felt like we all deserved more. I felt like we worked really hard and we all deserved more. I was on a team that brought in millions. Like, we brought in millions, but you never would think like, oh, that floor must bring in a lot of money, but we did. And I just had a whole new appreciation for items that we wear and like items that we possess. Clothing specifically, I'm talking about clothing. I had a different appreciation for sales. Life, we all sell something. We're all selling something. And it's important to learn how to communicate with people, because if you learn how to talk to people, you learn how to work with people. And if you learn how to work with people, I just feel like you learn how to live longer. So that's my story for today. Thank you for tuning in. Why don't you tell me your first job? What was that like? If you have any more questions, let me know. If you have any suggestions, let me know, and I will work on it. I'm going to be doing more story times like this just to kind of keep the content coming. And I think it's fun to reflect. I will figure out what I'll talk about next concerning my first job or whatever else. But thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day. Talk later. Bye.